Hey, what's up everyone? And well, I know I haven't done any movie reviews this year, and I'm going to try to make up for that because I had a rather busy schedule working with game reviews and some other things, but might as well just kind of do a little rundown, and this time it's going to be something a little different. A Marvel marathon, yeah, because we already had 3 Marvel movies released already this year, and the first 2 are already on DVD and Blu-ray, and as for the last one, it's still in theaters, but before I jump the gun here, might as well get to the first one, Captain America, Brave New World. I've been highly anticipating this one because, let's be honest here, the 3 Captain America movies, First Avenger, Winter Soldier, and Civil War were awesome. No question there, and they seem to have gotten better and better with Chris Evans in the Captain America outfit. And, well, now, of course, since Avengers Endgame, we all know the MCU has been kind of hit and miss. But, well, I was hoping that this one would kind of pick up the slack and improve on it. And obviously, you have to know that this is not Chris Evans' Captain America. He handed down the shield, and not to spoil anything major, but I think most of us have watched the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. It's now the Falcon who takes up the mantle as the new Captain America, and he's played by Anthony Mackie. So, yeah, it's definitely making way for the future, and as we know, Harrison Ford takes up the mantle as the same character played by William Hurt. May he rest in peace, unfortunately. So, yeah, even with those flaws and everything, I tried to really keep an open mind to this one, but it was, well, kind of a mixed bag for a lot of people, and I can definitely see why. Well, as you know, this one's already on DVD and Blu-ray and Disney Plus, so you can go check it out if you're interested in seeing it, if you have that streaming service. And, well, I guess there's really no point in saying spoiler alert, because I think most of us have seen this one. And, well, yeah, for high expectations that I had on this movie, I was a little disappointed. But I didn't entirely hate the movie. There was some good, and there was some bad. So, first the good. First of all, yes, the Falcon character as the new Captain America, awesome. He's badass. Anthony Mackie really nails down the role pretty well. I like the island scene, which is pretty cool. And, well, for nearly a 2-hour runtime, the bad. And I hate to say it, but it kind of outweighs the good a little bit. Not completely overshadows it, but there are some things you can't ignore. Like, for instance, there are some slow parts. There are a lot of talking scenes, which a lot of these Avenger movies have, but this one I think it's a little too cocky. And, well, we kind of seen this idea before, where characters get programmed to attack, and there's an attack on the president and on the Capitol. Kind of seen that before in past Marvel movies, you know, with the Winter Soldier and everything like that. Not the same thing, but it's just similar, and it's kind of exhausting. Some of the action's good, like I said, I like all the gadgets, but it's kind of, we've seen this before, more or less. There's a lot of flying scenes. I like the Falcon's partner and everything, but he's not really well developed for the most part. I feel like, you know, they could have done more with him. And, well, you do get Bucky, obviously, you know, he's not the Winter Soldier anymore, to make sort of a brief cameo almost towards the end of the movie. And another thing is, well, yes, there is, of course, the Red Hulk, which is what Harrison Ford's character transforms into, but it's not till almost the end of the movie, and I feel like it just kind of comes out of nowhere. You know, it doesn't really need to be thrown in there at the last minute, which it kind of is. You know, there's a cool fight scene and everything, but it's mostly just done with CG, which you know it's going to be mostly, and for the most part, it didn't really need to be in there. It should have just been about trying to stop the main villain, which, like we can all agree, is the film's biggest flaw. Yes, it's great to see Tim Blake Nelson back as, you know, Mr. Blue for the first time in over 10 years. I was wondering what the hell happened to this guy, you know, from the 2008 Incredible Hulk. And, well, he's the villain doing all this behind everybody's back, but it doesn't really have much of a strong motive behind it and everything. And, well, yeah, the design to him, I think they could have done a much better job here. Like, really? This is the best they can do? I'm sorry, Marvel, but you could have done better than this. But overall, an entertaining movie for some parts, but if you have high expectations like I had, you're going to be disappointed. Not the Captain America movie that was like the first three, entertaining, but kind of forgettable. So, my final verdict is Wii Motion Plus up and the plain Wii Remote down. I think that's fair enough. So, next one, Thunderbolts. Yeah. I didn't really have as high expectation for this one, considering the somewhat disappointment with Brave New World. And thankfully I didn't. I went in with an open mind, and I saw, yeah, it has some of the other characters that I didn't really care too much about. Obviously, the main character herself is Black Widow's sister, Yelena. And obviously, again, it takes place after the events of Endgame, and she's trying to move on after the death of her. And, well, she's more or less trying to find her identity and place in the world. Now, of course, this one is also on Blu-ray, DVD, and I think it's on Disney Plus as well. So I'll try to keep spoilers to a minimum, because I don't think everybody's seen this one yet. But yeah, it's mainly focused around her character, sent on missions, got a lot of action, some humor, some talking, and I thought to myself, yeah, this one is surprisingly good. I was definitely shocked to see Marvel actually pull it off. It seems like they're finally coming through, and this film proves it once and for all. You got, of course, not only her, but you also get that same character that you probably remember seeing in the post-credit scene that she meets up with at the end of Black Widow, which was a decent film, as well as her father, played by David Harbour, and a bunch of other characters that you probably remember from the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. Yeah, I remember the fake Captain America who has to hand in his shield, played by Wyatt Russell. He's back in action somehow, as well as Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp. And yeah, even the Taskmaster character, who's not under control anymore and more or less doing her own thing. But basically, they're all summoned to do the same task to free this unknown character that we haven't seen before. But for most of you who have read the comic books, you probably know what's going to become of him. His name is Bob. And they go under a top secret bunker and fight each other at first. Yeah, it's one of those where they don't get along at first. They fight one another and realize that they have to put their differences aside and team up, becoming the new Avengers. So yeah, it's definitely a nice fresh start for this series, if you can call it that. To me, it definitely was. I like all the ways they work together, like when they climb up that big, long, tall shaft to get out of there. And, well, there's a couple of surprises here and there that are a little predictable, but you probably see coming. Yeah, it's a thoroughly entertaining movie, and having to make their way out of there and back to track this guy who turns out is more or less a setup to get caught by the military, or more or less a secret agency controlled by this character. So it's, yeah, more or less they're being backstabbed by Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character. Yeah, that's who she's played by, alongside her partner in crime, and you know she's obviously going to turn on her. So more or less, the villain in this movie may not be the strongest. Okay, you can kind of complain about that a little bit, but you can let that slide, because thankfully with a fresh start like this and such likable characters, with such great humor and chemistry in this film, it works on all levels, mostly. And yeah, even Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier's thrown in there too, who seemingly turns on them, but you know he's just going to team up with them eventually, and he does, to take down the new threat, which isn't really a threat. He's more or less a new superhero, and more or less taken to his dark side. And this is where the film can get a little slow and a little needlessly, well, dark. I like the idea of him showing each character the negative moments in their past, and then bringing them into an entire void of his own, where they obviously have to band together and fight it. Because, yeah, Yelena's character kind of puts herself down, realizing, like, you know, I can't do anything right and everything like that. But then they realize they have to just give that up and fight the depression and look at the good side of things. I guess that's where it all boils down to, is basically team up, put aside the bad things, and make something good out of it. And that's what this movie does. I like that. It's great to see that Marvel can come up with a new, fresh idea, maybe not the most original, but could definitely start somewhere from the ground up and finally work their way back. And I can safely say this movie does just that. I like the humor, I like the interaction with each character. Obviously there's going to be some CG in this, but the fight scenes and everything, it works. It breaks new ground for Marvel, and I'm interested to see what the future can be like for these characters. And it's obviously not going to end here because we have more movies yet to come next year. But before I get too carried away here, yeah, I enjoyed this one. And obviously, like most of these other Marvel movies, including the last one, Brave New World, that I just reviewed before, there are scenes in the middle and after the credits too as well. And I highly recommend watching them both because especially the one after the credits, let's just say it hints what's upcoming in the near future for Marvel, or more or less what already happened. But anyway, my final verdict is rocking Wii Motion Plus up and deploying Weird Mode up. So, now, well, let me suit up into the right outfit. Yeah, Fantastic Four, the first steps. And, well, unless you count, of course, the Incredibles movies, but that's more or less a different thing. There was also a 1994 unreleased movie, which was what you'd expect out of a very low-budget film. Not sure where you can watch it or if you can get a copy of it, but if you're curious enough, you can check it out. But, yeah, the Fantastic Four movies have had a pretty interesting history behind them, and most of them were not very good. I mean, I'll admit I sort of enjoyed the 2005 film. It was a guilty pleasure. It was campy, silly, but somewhat enjoyable. But I think we can all agree it could have done better. And then came The Rise of the Silver Surfer in 2007. Yeah, it sucked. And let's not even speak of that abomination we got 10 years ago. So we knew it was about time that Marvel finally got their act together. And we can say to Disney, take your shot. And, man, they nailed it. Nailed the shit out of it right here. That's all I could say. I mean, was that too hard to accomplish there, Fox? So, yeah, you obviously know this is going to be part of the MCU this time around. And with upcoming movies and the teaming up with the Avengers, I could safely say they finally did it. And with, well, pretty good direction and everything. Now, of course, because this one, as I'm doing this review, is still in theaters, I'm going to keep spoilers to a minimum. And, well, I could say the casting was very well chosen. I mean, you got Mandalorian actor himself, Pedro Pascal, playing Mr. Fantastic. You got Hobbs and Shaw actress Vanessa Kirby as Invisible Woman. You got Ibn Mas Bakarach. Yeah, sorry if I mispronounced that name. Kind of a tough one to pronounce, but yeah, he plays the Thing. And Joseph Quinn, who you probably best remember as Eddie Munson from Stranger Things and A Quiet Place Day One, as the Human Torch. And yeah, they actually do a great job interpreting each character and their purpose in the entire film. And it's not about just one taking the spotlight, trying to hog it in front of all the others. No, they all have their purpose in the entire film. And, well, if you saw the trailer, you know what the plot is about. Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman are about to have a baby. And it's more than just about that. It does have a purpose in this film and its main plot and conflict. But let's get to the good stuff, what makes this film better than all the other ones. For one thing, like Spider-Man Homecoming and The Incredible Hulk, they don't have to show and take up an entire chunk of the movie with them going into space and getting their powers. You know, there's no build-up, there's no excavation or anything like that with a lot of slow-paced dialogue and just yapping and boring us to death. No, it actually happens at the beginning, and it happens so fast. That's right. It cuts the bullshit and just gets right to what this movie series and what every other Fantastic Four movie should have had. Crime fighting, villain fighting, kicking some ass, action, you know, a comic book movie that all of us wanted to see. Superheroes teaming up, using their powers to save the day. And it does just that. Yeah, I mean, it's about freaking time. You see plenty of it. I like the whole design to the city. Obviously, it takes place in the 1960s, but with a lot of futuristic gadgets. Like, you got the robot that's in their place. You got all the flying cars and the futuristic look in New York City with some old retro stuff that a lot of you, if any of you parents who grew up in like the 50s or 60s, probably remember, like tube TVs and Apollo 11 looking spacesuits, vintage cars, orbit seating couches. Yeah, that's the name of these apparently. A talk show host called Ted Gilbert, who's an obvious nod to the Ed Sullivan Show for any of you who grew up during that era. I like all the different TV stations and how all the people of the city are like thanking the superheroes. You know, God bless the Fantastic Four, we love you and all that, all the people's reaction. This is what we want to see out of a comic book movie. So, of course, yeah, things are going great for them, but when the baby's about to come around, well, this is when things get a little dicey because, well, we're introduced to not one, but more or less two villains, but more or less the side villain is the Silver Surfer, played by Julie Gardner. I'm not completely distracted and disappointed that it's, of course, a female Silver Surfer this time around. And as you know, she's scouting and more or less preparing the people of the Earth of what's about to come. And that is, of course, Galactus. Yes, that's right, the planet-devouring giant villain, more or less a godlike villain, to say the least. And I will say this, he actually looks like Galactus. Not like that glob of shit that we got in the 2007 film. It actually resembles the one we got out of the comic book. So that's another great thing I have to compliment. And the Fantastic Four do just as what you'd expect. They go and try to confront him. And, well, the conflict is that he will only spare the Earth if he gets the child. But they're not going to give up that easily. They don't want to give away the child, and they're hated for it. You got protests and riots that break out. Yeah, this part of the film, even though it's a bit talky, you do have a lot of scientific stuff and everything like that. It's still very fascinating, to say the least. It draws you in pretty much very well into the plot. You get the feel of a tough decision, you know, because you want to protect your child as well as protect the world. So they try to come up with a plan to try to stop Galactus and Silver Surfer by all costs. That's as far as I'll go with spoilers. As far as anything goes in this film, I don't want to get too cocky with that. But yeah, the action's great. There's always something going on. There's always some kind of build-up, a couple of surprises here and there. And for one thing, like I said, each character serves their purpose. They each have their own distinctive little characteristic, and it doesn't distract too much, or, you know, with one character trying to overtake the other. You know, the Thing, obviously, is the strong one. Invisible Woman is more or less the heart of the team, and, well, obviously the one giving birth to the child. Mr. Fantastic is obviously the brains of the team with all the sciencey stuff and trying to figure out all the conflicts and the solutions. And, of course, Human Torch is kind of the wise guy of the team and more or less goes out of his way to try to stop Silver Surfer with all the cool little stunts and everything like that. But he doesn't go too overboard and try to be a bit of a showboarder and a wise guy. You know, the jokes, some of them are a little cheesy. You got, like, when he interacts with Silver Surfer and asks, like, was your board attached to you or something like that. Yeah, it doesn't get too carried away, and that's fine. It blends itself with some good jokes, and as well as take itself seriously. I like the whole space travel situation. The action's really good. Obviously, it's going to be CG, but it works. It's well-paced, and all I could say is, this is what I'm talking about right here. It doesn't try to overstuff itself with too much, and of course, you can go in with a fresh mind and not have to watch any previous Marvel films or any miniseries to try to understand what's going on. You can just understand this movie easily, though I do recommend reading some of the comics and reading up about some of these characters. It's basically, despite being connected to the other MCU films, still its own thing. And it's great to see that. So, all I could say is, great job Marvel, and great job Disney. It's great to see that the MCU is finally stepping up and we finally got a good Fantastic Four movie that by all means does not suck. And yes, like the previous films, there is a scene during the middle of the credits. I'm not going to dare give that away, but you probably know what's upcoming in the future. And there is something after the credits, which I don't highly recommend sitting through. I mean, if you're curious enough, check it out. It's kind of cool. But all I could say is a cool, fresh new design and fresh start for the MCU, as well as the Fantastic Four. It's great to see that it can be done right. So, my final verdict, rockin' Wii Remote Wii Motion Plus up and the Playing Wii Remote up. Fantastic job, Disney and Marvel. So, that about ends my Marvel Marathon madness. Till next time, keep watching.